If you saw Saturday's video, you probably saw the year that we have had and the chaos that has ensued in our lives. But through that chaos came really valuable lessons. And today I want to share 3 lessons with you guys that have transformed my homeschool and that I hope will help to transform your homeschool as well. So let's get started. The first thing that has been hugely helpful in our homeschool and that has really transformed the way we do things this year has been taking the time to prioritize. And when I say prioritize, I feel like this is a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot and has very little meaning these days. But I mean actually prioritizing what you are doing in your homeschool and understanding why you are doing it. And not just in your homeschool, in all of life. Because what you have to recognize is that as you take on other commitments, other activities, other responsibilities in your life, it will impact your homeschool and it will all trickle down. So it's important to look at the whole picture and to say, are my priorities in place? And guess what? In different seasons, your priorities are going to have to change. When we're dealing with a child who has severe medical needs, who is fighting for her life, those are going to look very different priority-wise. Health is going to take a much higher role in our home than education is for that child. It just has to. Or when I was helping to come alongside my grandmother as she passed away at 93, and we were coming alongside her and coming to visit her for that short season, there were certain things that had to go by the wayside so that we could be there in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to spend those extra days and hours with her. The way I recommend doing this is writing out a list of all the different things that you have on your plate as a mom. And if you're shuddering right now at that thought and that feels overwhelming, it means you probably have a little too much on your plate. Write out what are your commitments, your daily, your weekly, your monthly commitments. Sit down and look through what curriculum are you actually doing in your home and what is actually necessary. I think that this is really hard for us because especially here on YouTube, we can get very inspired to do all of the things, or we can feel pressure from others that, well, they're learning Latin, we're not learning Latin, or they're doing these fun field trips and we're not doing these fun field trips. We can get caught in this comparison trap and it causes us to overcommit and underperform. We do not have the ability to do it all. So when we try to do it all, we will do nothing or we will do some of it and do it poorly. Or, there's just a lot of consequences for overcommitment here. So taking the opportunity to prioritize what is needed and to prioritize in your home, I think will massively transform your homeschool as you start to focus on doing what you are called to do. You specifically, not Susie, not Bobby, what you are specifically called to do and to do it well. The second lesson I learned was definitely the importance of systematizing. I don't really know if that's a word. Somebody tell me in the comments. I'm sure you guys will tell me if I'm not using the right word, but systematizing, the idea of taking systems and making as many things in your life be put on autopilot as possible. Now, I've talked about this here on my channel for years and years and years and years. So this is nothing new, but going through this hard season really helped me to see even more of an importance towards this. I need to reduce the amount of decisions I make in a day. I get decision fatigue, and I know you get decision fatigued as well. We get overwhelmed when every single day we are the gatekeeper of all of the information in our home, and when our children and our husbands and others around us have to come to us for everything. So we need to learn how to be managers of our home, not the sole person that keeps the home running, but managers of our home, to be able to delegate well and to be able to have things written out or in systems where people can implement it. So let me explain kind of what that looks like. So one of the things that we are going back to, that I've done a whole separate video on, is going back to having a strong system for our meal plans. With having my husband in school and working full time, as well as my daughter's medical needs that we have still continuing to go, it is more important now than ever that we stick to a strict system for meals rather than having a kind of a flowy, whatever goes with the wind type of season. We need to have the ability to know exactly what is needed to be able to make our shopping faster, to be able to make our meal prep faster, and to reduce that decision fatigue. So we are going back to having assigned meals Monday, Like every Monday is the same meal, every Tuesday is the same type of meal, every Wednesday is the same type of meal. There might be slight variations, like are we gonna do chicken tacos versus beef tacos? But this one night a week, it's gonna be tacos, and we just know that ahead of time. This helps to streamline my meal planning and to streamline my shopping list and my grocery shopping and meal prep, which, like I said, you can see more about that in the video that I'll link down below. But I do think it's important that we do more than just putting systems into place for our dinners. We can put systems into place for our snacks. We started this every Saturday. I will meal prep snacks and individually package their snacks, whether it's carrot sticks or fruit or granola or whatever it might be. I will put it in individual containers that my kids can easily access throughout the week. The idea is to do the work once and to kind of prep for a little bit in advance. Sometimes for you, it might look like prepping for an entire month. For me, I can really only prep a week at a time just with the season that we're in, but that still helps me on a day-to-day basis. It also helps me when I do things like having systems in place for cleaning and having good routines for my kids, delegating to them and helping them have really clear expectations of what I expect. So every single room in our house this year, we made visual checklists in every single room so they knew what needed to be done. So it wasn't like, hey, is the dining room clean? They could say, has the table been cleared? Has it been wiped? Have the chairs been pulled out? Has it been swept under? Have the chairs been put back in? All of these steps to break it down for them, to make it easy for them to follow. And even within our school, we have formed systems in place. We have put different days of the week that we're going to be doing certain things. This year, I'm doing a lot more focus on trying to get commitments to be in similar days as much as possible. I don't have the ability to control when we can see my daughter's specialist, but I do have the ability to make sure that our therapies that are regularly scheduled or our co-ops or other commitments like that kind of fall on the same 2 or 3 days for us as possible so that we can try and protect at least 2 days a week during our homeschool days that we know that we'll be home for the majority of the day. Taking the time to prep my materials ahead of time. I tell people all the time, don't feel like you have to have everything prepped before you get started. And that is true. But if you are walking into a season of challenge and hardship and you know this next year is going to be difficult, I would prioritize setting up those systems in place and preparing as much as possible. So I have done things for this year prep-wise, like making binders for each of my teens that has all of the things they're going to need for each subject that I'm aware of ahead of time. I'm aware things are going to come up, but as much as possible that they have clear lesson plans that they can follow without me. Our BiblioPlan history has laid out for you what you should read each day. I'm not giving them a copy of that because there's also a lot of other information on there, but I'm able to take that information and put it on a piece of paper for them to have a clear checklist that they can just follow that removes the need for me to manage that schoolwork. They're in high school, they're able to do that, but that takes kind of forethought and work to kind of work yourself out of a job. I think the third thing, probably the most impactful lesson for us this year, has been learning to homeschool in light of eternity. I actually did an entire talk about this topic at the homeschool retreat in Minnesota. If you guys are in the Minnesota area, I will not be at this upcoming retreat, but there are actually 2 retreats a year, and I will leave links down below where you guys can find that Abby over from Family Style Learning hosts every year, and it is a phenomenal time to get encouragement. But it is something that I shared about there, that as my grandmother did pass away this year, and as my daughter was going through some life-threatening medical scary things, we learned the importance of homeschooling in light of eternity, of recognizing this world is not our home, of recognizing that we have a greater purpose. That education is a very significant part of that purpose. It is an important thing. We teach our kids and we educate them to help equip them for what God is calling them to do in the future. So it's important for me to teach math and reading. It's important to me to teach these skills because they teach my kids about their creator. And all of these different school subjects are helping reveal things to them about God and who God is and to see the beauty in his world. So yes, they all have a purpose and they all are great things that we should be doing, to recognize that it does no good if my entire day is full of academics and appointments and commitments, and I haven't prioritized having the buffer time or the margin in my home to be able to have those heart-to-heart moments. And sometimes it's not even about me not prioritizing the buffer time, but it's about having the buffer time and choosing to do something else instead. So I really feel like, I don't know if I can explain this well in just this short video, but I do think it's important for us to recognize that our kids are a gift. They were given to us, to our specific family, and God was very aware of the situation and circumstances that we would walk through as a family. And He intended those situations, those circumstances, those trials, those struggles to be things that our kids grow from, that help develop and shape who they will become, that God will use to sanctify them and to prepare them for a future. So as much as I can beat myself up over the hardships we have gone through this year or the inconsistencies in areas, I know that God is also using those struggles and those life circumstances to prepare them for the future. I saw my kids' character being shaped and grow as they cared for their elderly grandmother or as they came alongside their sister who was going through so many things. It's important for us to recognize that there is a purpose behind the struggles we're going through. And there's a purpose to our schoolwork, and it's a balance to keep these in check. And the only way we can balance these things is by seeking Christ, by seeking God, by asking for His continual, every single day guidance into making sure we're keeping those lists and those priorities in place. I can't tell you the perfect formula. There are years where the academics are a major priority, and there are years where they're just not. Now, this does not give any excuse nor does it give any reason to be like, hey, remove your personal responsibility. It was a hard year. Don't worry about academics. Throw everything out the window. No, we are going to be held accountable for how we were with our kids. Were we faithful in what we were called to do? Have we done our best? Did we prioritize well? Going back to my first point. And did we prioritize well to help our kids learn what they needed to learn? But ultimately, God is in control. And He is not limited by our limitations or our ability or inability to teach our kids in a year. He is going to mold them and shape them and use them for His will and His purpose. And I want to share that with you guys today because I feel like it's something that oftentimes gets lost. We can get stuck in those to-dos and all the tips and tricks and the fancy gadgets and all the things. And we need to recognize the importance of keeping that eternal focus. If you want to know more about how to have an eternal focus in your life, I recommend this book by Paul Tripp, and I will leave links down to that and below, as well as the other resources that I have mentioned here today. And if you want to learn more about some of the systems we have put in place for our home, be sure to check out this video here.